Hey up everybody and welcome back. Right, well, so what's happening this week? I'll tell you about the bike in a minute. Just to let you know that I've got water again, and I was the victim of coincidence. You would think if you had the temperature dropped to well below freezing, I mean a long way below freezing point, and your heating went off overnight and the next morning you didn't have any water, that it would have something to do with the cold. And I prattled around for ages trying to solve it. Eventually I got a plumber in, I think I mentioned that last week, and when he came and tested everything, it was the water pump, the pump that sucks the water out of the well. So it just so happened that the night we had the freeze, I mean it may have affected it, who knows, but it was actually because the pump itself is all bunged up with iron salts and sediment and stuff that come from the well. We get so much of it filtered out, but it's a cast iron pump, it rusts on the inside. So isn't that strange? I could have just phoned them up and said, here, my pump's packed up, and they probably could have fixed it straight away. But anyway, that's beside the point. Still got snow, still cold. Bike. We're going to carry on with cycle part stuff. Going to mark up and fit the little pins in here for the side panels. What else are we going to do? We're going to fit the back mudguard, I think, so that I know where everything goes there. We are going to... I decided not to use the actual speedometer that would have been on the Scorper, because it was only small. It was only a couple of inches diameter, and I think it only went up to 50 miles an hour, so that wouldn't do. So what I've done is I've ordered a GPS one, which should be here in the next day or two. So we'll make a mounting plate for up here to take the speedometer, ignition switch and light switch, and then we'll have to make up a little mount for the GPS thing, which we'll put up here under the headlight somewhere. And then, because there's not going to be any switches in the headlight or in the headlight shell itself, we'll have space, because it has a long wire that goes from the sort of little GPS receiving unit to the actual speedometer. So we'll be able to, what we'll do is we'll mount the sending unit here, and the wire can go inside the headlight, be coiled up in there, come out of the headlight and straight into the Speedo. So that will all work nice, and that actually solves this problem. You remember I was worried that the handlebars were going to catch on the top of this bolt head. Well, I'm going to make the mount under the handlebar mount, so that'll raise the handlebars 1/8 of an inch. That'll solve that problem. Might look at, depends on how much time we've got, might look at front mudguard, but I want to try and get these bits and pieces done, and then we'll do the engine, because you may remember this is the same frame as the 250, which comes up to about here. With the 500 on, there's very little space in here. You certainly can't get the head off. So we can't do our usual thing of just putting the bottom in and building up the engine. We won't do the gearbox and the clutch and all the rest of it, just to save some weight when I'm humping this in. And with having plates at the back, there is a little bit more space than if he's trying to drop it in between mounts front and back. But we'll leave that until I've got all the engine parts cleaned up, and we can build up the bottom half, barrel, head, rocker box, and then we'll just put that in, make sure everything goes, and then I can do the exhaust, of course, if I've got the cylinder head on. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's set to and do the various bits that we can actually get done this week. Right, well, I thought to myself I should really finish off this rear brake, so let's have a look at this. I put a footrest on. I couldn't find a long bolt to start with, so I've just put a couple of cable ties in. There's a bolt in there. That's up against its stop. I'm going to have to think of some way of putting a spring on this, because that's going to go on there. So the natural tendency of the brake is going to be to want to go down, which is going to want to put the brake on. So we've got to have something that keeps this up against the stop, so there's no pressure on here. So what we have, see, is a thing like that is going to go in there. So I think the first thing for me to do is cut this off I'll see if I can get a used one of these. This is off a brand new pedal. I don't really want to use it, although funnily enough it's, no, it won't go on there, but it is about the right size hole. So let me cut this off and see how it goes, because I was down here, there are two holes already tapped. That's where the brake light switch goes on, because the brake light switch on these is a funny round thing that instead of being pulled, it's weird. Anyway, so I've got a mounting point there, but I'm going to need this to be up here somewhere, and this is threaded there. So really the bracket wants to be on the outside of it, and then I can just bolt that to it. Now that would also be nice actually, because I could make the bracket and I could have a little piece that comes out just to protect this from your leg and things, and your shoe catching on it. But as you can see, that's in the way a bit, so let me cut this off and then we can get a better idea. Right, well, I cut that piece off there so we can see what we're doing. I also actually turned this around so we don't have the nut on this side. And then I suddenly had a thought while I was looking at all this, because I was trying to get the cable through and everything. I thought, oh shoot, we've got a chain here. I've got to think about that. So then, the hose I had is very stiff, probably just old age. I remembered that when we built the Nautica for that disc brake, I had to buy a couple of hoses because I kept measuring it wrong or whatever. So I found another one which is a lot more flexible, and actually these actually come off, they're screwed on, but the bends were much nicer. So I've put this on the other end. Let me pull you back a bit. The bend on there is nice, it takes it down to the swinging arm. And then I was thinking about it, and I think I can come round here like that. That keeps me right out the way of the chain, but of course I'm starting to get a long way away from here. Then I thought, can we put it round there like that? I might have to get a different hose, I don't know. Could put that up there like that. See, don't forget we've got to have this so that, that's there now, but it could be right over here, it could be on that button there. So I've got to have sort of this big circle around here that I don't get in the way of. So what I'm going to do is we're going to put the mudguard on. See, that could go on like that. I think that might be alright, I don't know. Anyway, let's do the mudguard. We've got a little repair on it first. Put that on and we can see where this is going to go. I did worry that the side cover was going to get in the way, but actually the side cover goes on right up there like that. So we've got plenty of space for that to come through. So let's get this mudguard out and look at it. So this is the mudguard we're going to use. It's actually a pair of a T25, the Triumph variant, the badge variant of the B25. And as you can see, it's damaged here. It seems to be bent there as well, but I'm not sure if it's meant to be like that. Anyway, I thought the damage went right up into here. So I'll just tap that out. That can be repaired later on before we come to painting it. So I'll tap this bit out just so that it fits better, and then we'll bolt it up onto the bike. I'll put the mudguard in, and the hole's lined up, so that's good. This piece of rod here approximates chain line if the suspension is fully compressed right up to the bump stop. So, because I was wondering if there was enough room to actually go through there, because as I say, this thing screws off. See, that comes off, so I could put that through there like that. But save a little bit. As I say, we've got to have enough. I should stick a little something on there so that I know how far off to be rather than just trying to gauge it. See, it could go immediately behind the pivot point, because the chain obviously never touches that. The chain's above and below it at all times. There again, you see, we have the chain, the primary chain case comes right out to here, so couldn't really go. See, you can't know, it's got to go over the top of that, I think. See, that's too high. It's got to be down here somewhere. We're starting to get into trouble about where we can mount this. I mean, obviously this mount is no problem. It's this one. Let me think about this some more. So I've been thinking about this, and it struck me that because these are screw-on pieces, if I could get one made that was longer and actually right angled, that would fit in there beautifully. So I've got to do a little bit of research on that. So while I'm looking into that, I thought we'd do the pins that mount the side panels. So what I have done is I put that bracket on there. Actually, when I gave it a bit bead blast to clean up, look, it's the dove grey underneath. And because that's on, I can put these up. As I say, this one has an OD fastener, and check that they're right there. But what I've also done is, off the other frame, I've made what I think carpenters call a storyboard. So I've marked on where the pins are. So I put that on there. Hold that down the side. Mark that there. Mark that there. Right, I'll move you around the other side, but I don't know if I'll be able to get you to see this. Right, let's see if you can see this. Now I know that my little vertical marks want to be here on the centre line of that piece of tube. But I thought, just out of interest, look, we'll put this on. And that is spot on. You can't see it, can you? Because you're not at an angle, but I can see that tube, that mark exactly there and exactly there. So I'll mark them on the vertical line, and I'll do the same on the other side, and then we can punch it and drill some holes. Could you see that? No, of course you can't. Now I've drilled the holes. Very strange, in here there's something inside the tube. I can see it there. I don't know what it is, but the drill caught it and it actually sort of made me drill at a little bit of an angle. But I don't know whether something is sleeved or whatever, but it's very odd. Anyway, what I did was, which hole can you see best? It doesn't matter. I found out how deep they go. I want these to stick out 1/2 inch, which is the same as on the other frame. So that's 3/4 of an inch. So I made these 1.25 inches long. And the reason I did that was, there was 2 ways I could have done this. This is 1/4 inch that it wants to be. I could have turned down a piece, like I do when I'm making the pivot point for prop stand springs, and then drilled this hole, say 1/8 or 3/16, so this had a shoulder on, and popped it in. Or you can just put that in, you're saying it'll stay there. Whereas if I'd only made it 1/2 inch long, it would have been difficult to do. So anyway, I can put that in, get it set, put a little tack on, and then tap it around till it's dead right, and then go all the way around. So I'm going to bronze these in. So let me get on and put the 4 of them on. So there's the 4 of them bronzed in place. They're a bit awkward to get at even with the mudguard out, so I'll do them when I've got the frame off and I can go around easily. But I think you can see from that side, they go on there nicely in the centre, and that will fit on there. And I've tried the other side as well, so they're fine. Right, next. Right, well, I'm actually painting a petrol tank for a friend, so in between coats of paint I've been out in the shed to rummage around. Found a B50/B25 saddle base. These, you know, the BSA ones sort of always have this thing at the front somewhere, and then these go on it. Well, instead of going down as they usually do with pieces that fit onto the rear suspension unit tops, you see this bracket here, there's one on this side, and there are bolts welded into the base that drop down into those. So if I can get that on there, right, that goes there, and then a nut goes on under here, and that holds that down. I have 2 or 3 of these. This one is not brilliant, but it's the best one of the lot. So that's on. Everything's bolted up here, so I know what's going to happen there. Let's go up to the front end. Now then, on the pardon me with that there lorry. On the oil and frame frames for off-road use, the front mudguard actually mounts up here. There's a bracket that bolts to the bottom yoke. Well, the bottom yoke on the BSAs is solid. This is cast as a web, literally. So there's nothing to bolt it to. So what I've done is I've welded up the 2 holes that would have gone to, and we're going to put it on here. Oops. And make up some mudguard stays that go to the mudguard mounts. Hang on a second, I'll show you the mudguard that normally goes on this bike. I should have said normally goes on these forks. And there it is. As you can see, it's got great big holes in it. It's flippily floppily plastic. So the forks go down into there, and then there's the mountings that go onto those 2 mountings there. So we're going to make up mudguard stays and put it on low, well, put it on where that would be. Alright, I think it'll look fine. Okay, what else? I was going to put the handlebars on to see where things go, because I put the front brake caliper on, and that's going to go up to the handlebars. So let me show you that. While we're on about front mudguards, let me show you something here. Every single one of these mudguards I've seen, whether it's a steel painted one or a stainless steel one, cracks there. The other side started cracking the same here. They all do it. Let me pull you back. I think the reason they do it is because, as I say, there's a bracket that bolts there and there. it sort of goes along, goes up flat, comes back down, and the flat bit bolts to the bottom yoke. It's on rubber grommets, and I think this thing just flexes so much in there that because of the way that's been formed, there's a weakness in the metal. And as I say, I can't remember ever taking one of these off that wasn't cracked. So I'll have to weld that up. Just as an aside, I keep you appraised of the weather. I've just come in, I've been down to the metal stockists. 1/8 inch alloy. I don't know, 12 by 18, no, 18 by 18, something like that, and another piece 18 by 2 feet. 3 feet of 1.5 inches, 8 feet of 3/4, 8 feet of 1 inch steel. This is cold rolled, admittedly, so it's a little more expensive. Guess how much? $300. That's over £200. Price of metal, particularly steel, has about tripled in the last 18 months. Okay, just thought you might be interested. Right then, we've had another delivery. Here's our speedometer. I would have quite liked one with a chrome bezel, but some of the ones with chrome bezels were like 160 miles an hour, so all the numbers were tiny. I didn't like them at all. And some of the other ones, this has a normal type mounting, you know, with a bracket that goes over it, which we're not actually going to use, as you'll see. But a lot of them were sort of like a sink drain fitting. They had a piece and sort of with a large knurl, so this was threaded, and then there was a collar, again plastic, that screwed up to clamp it to the bezel. I didn't like that either, so that's the one I got. Okay, I think it looks quite nice. Right, now what it comes with is, that's the sensor for the GPS, and it mentioned in the instructions not to cut this cable, and actually when you look at it, it's like a mini coaxial cable like you have for the television, or used to have, whatever. I don't know, I haven't had a television for 20 odd years. So the coaxial has, you can see the pin in the center there, hole. So it has one element down the center. The other part of the connectivity is by having an outer conductive material. It's like on the television ones, it's like a woven steel mesh, so you can't really cut it, shorten it, you know, and then stick the ends back together again. So basically that's how it's going to be on the bike. We're going to have that mounted at the front here under the headlamp somewhere. That screws into the back of that, and this is going to be up inside the headlamp shell, so it'll all be very nice. Then there's a little electrical connector for the back down there, and that's where have we got power in, power out, and one for the backlight. Right, okay, so let's see how we're going to fit all this. So we're going to make up a mounting plate out of 1/8 inch alloy. So that's the hole for the speedometer. The slightly lighter line, which you might just be able to see, is the diameter of the bezel. So then here we're going to have this light switch, and then I managed to get a very nice ignition switch, because most of them are very bulky once they get underneath. They're a big drum. This, as you can see, isn't, but it has flats on it, so that when it's in the hole and you turn the key, it doesn't just twivel. So that is that piece there. The dotted lines are where it's going to be bent, because it's not going to be flat. It's going to come along, go down, and then go flat. This is the bolt pattern for the handlebar mounts, the handlebar clamps. So this will go onto the top yoke, and then the handlebar clamps will go on the top of it. So because these are all such funny sizes, You know, like this is just over 3/4, 760. This one, I'm going to have to sort of make a hole 630 and then flatten the sides out and extend it. So that's going to be sort of file work. Or I might do it, I'm going to do this in the mill, so I might use a small mill to try and do that. And this of course is nearly 3/8 wide. So I want it to be a good close fit. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out like that. Right, we're not going to cut this part here. That way I can put it on the milling table and I can clamp it up here and I can clamp it there and there, both sides, so it's all really firm. We'll use this template just to mark all the centres. We're not going to cut the holes out of any of these. We'll mark them all. Then we can use the biggest hole saw I've got, which I think is only 1.75 inches, to cut that out, and then we'll use the boring head to take that exactly out to the right size, because I can keep trying the Speedo into the hole. The same with these. That's 760, so I can use a 3/4 drill to start with, and then just take it out till it's a good fit for the light switch. And then this one, as I say, we'll drill it. 630 is what? That's just over 5/8. 5/8 is 625. So again, we can drill a hole and then just finagle the edges to get the right shape. Then these are just 5/16 holes. So we'll have the chuck back in and we'll just bonk, bonk, bonk do those. Alright, so let me cut a piece of 1/8 inch alloy, whatever this is. That's 4 3/4 inches long, so we'll cut it about 6 inches to give me enough room to clamp it down. Slight addendum. I've just been thinking about this and I decided it would probably be a lot better to put these bends in before I put certainly all these holes in here. So that's what we'll do. First of all, we'll put this in the brake, bend that, but I'll still cut it out this big size. We'll bend it and then we can put some parallels underneath and do the holes. Alright, so as I say, let me cut this piece of alloy first. There's the piece cut out, so while it's flat, I'll just put that on there and we'll punch to mark all those. Then I'll anneal it, then I'll bend it. Oh, and by the way, there is more to this than just this flat plate. There will be a sleeve for the speedometer to fit in and various other things, because I'm actually thinking of using this as well to make the top mount for the headlamp ears, but we'll come to that later. Let's not get ahead of ourselves or I'll get confused. Right, so I've put the bends in, they're actually on the back. I've also marked a circle so I knew where to put these clamps. So that's all clamped down now. As I say, 1.75 inches is the biggest hole saw I've got, simply because I've never needed a bigger one. But here goes. Alright, part one. Let me change this for the boring head. So I'll put the boring head in, and those eagle-eyed amongst you will notice when I start that it's going anti-clockwise, not clockwise. That's because this is the only short boring bar I've got, and normally it goes in the cross hole there. but this being only 1.75 inches and this is a 2-inch boring head, so it sticks out 2 and a bit inches, I'm having to do it this way. So we'll just run it backwards to keep the insert going in the right direction. Okay. Right, well this is going to take a lot of doing, so I won't bore you with it, no pun intended. So I'll get it out close to the line I drew, and then I'll measure it, and then I'll bring you back. Now I've just remembered that I ground up what is basically a trepanning tool to fit in this boring head. So I've just had a little try with it and it worked a treat. Can't remember what I made it for, but it does mean that I don't have to just keep taking a little bit off the inside. I can actually move in. So I've taken one fairly decent sized chunk out. You can see we're a lot bigger. I've only got to go to there. So we're going to take another decent sized chunk off just to show you. I've turned the speed down a little bit as well, and now we are going clockwise. I've also put an extra clamp on because I noticed that corner was flexing a little bit, because this is putting a lot more pressure into the work than there we go. Now what I can do now, I think, is fit the proper boring bar, this one, in here, and then that will be going the right way and I can be a little more accurate. So let me change that out and I'll measure this and see how much, and I'll bring you back again. Well, I've done it again and let myself get a fixed mindset. I was just thinking, I've just been having a sandwich and a cup of tea, and I was thinking, okay, when I've done this, how am I going to clamp all this down to do the holes? And I suddenly thought to myself, wait a minute, these sides are parallel, there's space at both sides. I could have put this in the vise on a couple of parallels. Done that, virtually actually done all the holes without moving it. Whereas here, I was going to move these clamps so I could do these 2 holes at the back and then move it again to do the 4 mounting holes. I tell you. Alright, I've changed over to the proper boring bar. Right, so let's put that into gear. So now I'm going to skim just a bit off. I've set this fortunately to 0, it just came right. Then I'll measure that, and then I can take the last little bit off and start checking it with the speedo. So let me do that. Right, I did the last piece, couple of thou at a time, checking with the speedo. That's perfect. Right, so let me take all these clamps off and we'll put it in the vise. Right, so now it's in the vise on a couple of thin parallels so I can drill these 2 holes. This one is going to be 3/4, so I'll just run a 5/16 through. It's one of those ones with a little starter point on. Then we'll run the 3/4 through. Then what I've done over here is I actually cut that out and then I've marked it so that I know to make it the right shape. And I checked the switch, the ignition switch in that hole, so I know it's alright. Okay, so there's that. Right, let me switch you off while I change bits and things. And now a 3/4 hole. that should be just on the small side. Actually, this might go in up to the threads. See, that just needs a little bit, so that's perfect for that. We'll ease that off with a file later on. Right, now let's start on this one. Now the biggest I can make this hole is the width across the flats. So we're going to drill a round hole there, which means we'll have to file. Well, what I'm going to do is put an end mill in. We're going to have to go along and do those sides and then this part here. So that is 630 thou. This is a 5/8 drill, which is 625. I've already drilled the 5/16 pilot hole. Right, now let me put an end mill in there. Right, now I've got a 5/8 end mill in there, and I've just been measuring this again, and actually this comes out at 627, so basically it is 5/8, and from here to here is 735, so that's 110 thou longer than it is wide. So this is centered. I've got it from when I drilled the hole on the digital readout. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to go 55 each way, and we'll pull it up and see if the switch will go in, and then if need be we'll just put, I can move it a thou that way and a thou this way and do a little bit on the sides. Alright, so let's see if that will work. Okay. Put that there. Make sure my numbers are right. 110, yes, so we're going to go 55. Hang on, I've got the x-axis locked. I can pull. There we go. So we're going to go. Plus 55. And now we'll go minus 55 the other way. To be about the right length. Actually, I think what I'll do is I'll finish that off with a file. So let me take this out, finish those two holes with a file and see what they look like. Right, so I worked the flats a little with a triangular file. So that goes in there. Like that. Now if you're wondering why this one doesn't turn when you turn the switch, it's got a little bobble on it. So there's a little cutout for the little bobble. And that goes in there like that. And that goes in there like that. And I've got, whoops, because that was going to be cut round there. So I have one more cutout to make, which I've forgotten about. We'll drill these 4 holes for the mounting, but then there's got to be a cutout here because that's where the bolt head is that goes into the fork stem. Alright, so let me go and mark that up on there, and then we can drill these holes. Well, I might drill the holes first. Got the 4 holes drilled, and I just walked over and checked, and they actually line up, which is always amazing. So the next thing I've got to do is mark that up there, and I measured up, cut that out as well. So that goes on there, like so. We'll mark it, cut it out, and do the same with the top. Right then, let's see what's what. There it is, all put together. Hole in the bottom. Of course, can't find one of these bolts. Oh, there we go, the heat's gone off. Oh, that painting job I was doing. Put a coat on last night, and then when I was finished for the day, I went out and I forgot to turn the extractor fan off. So of course that was running all night, sucking cold air in. So I presume the heating was running all night, and it was still coldish when I came in this morning. So that's put me back a day with that. Oh, that blooming thing's gone. I just took them out, and now you've got to put them back in, and they're not there. Alright, so that's going to go on there like that. And then there's going to be a sort of shroud which will go around it to fill it all in. A side on there. Hide the switch, hide this thing. And that's when I say I'm not going to use this. I'm not, because the shroud is going to have a piece across the bottom. So that will just drop in and bolt on. And I'll probably be able to shorten them a little bit. Then I was going to use a smaller headlamp, but I couldn't find one without holes in the top that I liked. So that's going to go in there like thus. Where are we? Like thus, get it centered. And as I say, because of various things, it's going to be difficult to make some headlight ears. So I'll show you them later on, what I plan to do. But anyway, that's going to go on there like that, and I've left it in there. As I say, we'll mount the GPS sensor thing under here somewhere, and the wires will come down, go into there, be coiled up, come back out and go into there. That'll work well. So I think that looks alright, and it's 1/8 inch once that's on. So it'll come out of there, go down very slightly, go all the way around, and it'll have an extra piece on so that when I make the handlebar ears, it'll bolt to it at the top rather than being around there. Okay, so hang on, let me take the thing out so the table goes down and you can get a... There you go. Does that give you a better look at it? No, it's displayed now, isn't it? That's what you're supposed to be seeing. I should really switch you off and fiddle, shouldn't I? But never mind. When that's all filled in, that's going to look very nice. So there's our light switch. Ignition key will go in there. Very good. Alright, That's enough for today. Now to do the skirt, for want of a better term. What I want to do, of course, is go around that to cover that over, and it'll come down far enough that I can put a cross piece on, which will be welded in and drilled to take those, so that'll bolt it into there. But what I also want to use this skirt for is to strengthen the two bends. You can't see the bottom one, so coming around here, that would stop it flopping that way, but this bend as well. So what I've done is, go around the other side, that is going to go on there, like that. Okay, so when that's welded all the way around, welded to the bottom and everything, it's going to strengthen up both bends. Just hold that line. There you go. So that'll go on like there, like that. Then what I've got to do is think of a way. I said handlebar ears in the last video, didn't I? The headlamp ears. So hang on, let me open you out a bit so that you can see this. We're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to see, I've got this piece here which is just under 2 inches, and it is about an inch. Well, that's an inch and a little bit. So what I'm going to do at the bottom here is, out of alloy, make a clamp. Nice one, not just like an exhaust clamp thing, a nice piece of alloy which will slide on. It'll have a split in it and a clamp bolt, but it'll look nice. And to that will be attached the headlight ear. So it'll come out like that, you know, and drilled so the headlight goes in it. So I need something to fasten it to at the top. Now it's not hugely structural because it'll be clamped at the bottom. It'll be clamped, of course, where the headlamp is. So basically at the top I just need something to hold it. So what I was thinking was, since there's no easy way to make another clamp at the top because of this piece, is with this on, let's get that back round there. Go. With that on, I could have a little piece, comes down slightly, and then the handlebar, I've said it again, the headlamp ear can fasten to that. What I'm thinking is this will come down a bit, just there, and maybe put a boss on it. You know, a piece of round alloy welded at this end, tapped in the centre hole. So then, before we put the top yoke on, this part will slide on here, clamp up. I'll probably weld the ear to it at the bottom, and then it can just nicely slip a bolt into that boss there, and that should look reasonably tidy, I think. Okay, so but I can make that a weld-on piece, or however I finally decide to do it. But let me cut a piece of alloy. I can't decide whether to make this out of 1/8, like the top plate, or I think 1/16 will be amply strong enough. Yeah, I think 1/16, and then it saves me having to make this bend in a much stronger material. Right, let me go cut this out. And there it is, almost finished. I've got a couple of little bits of welding to do on the inside underneath, but I did the top bit and finished it all off and gave it a quick polish just so you could see. And it suddenly struck me, I don't need to put a piece under here. It's all out of sight. I might as well use the bracket it came with. I also found, I'm going to move you around and show you something. Let me shine a torch in there. I found a hole that is tapped 6mm. So what I'm going to be able to do, I think, well, I have to make up a little plate because the hole in this is only about 4mm, and the last time I tried to drill one of these out, broke the bracket off. You remember with the what was it, the ignition coil or something on the electronic ignition, so I'm not going to try that. What I think I'll do is make up a little plate, and that will mount there beautifully. Then, as I say, this will go inside the headlamp shell, and that bit will come out and go onto the speedo. So that's going to make that easier, because I was wondering about that. So, as I say, that is just like Royal Enfield. Unbelievable. Okay, so there's that done. So now actually I can put the handlebars in, and oh yeah, that's nicely above that stem bolt. So we'll do that next. But that's it for this week. So till next week, stay safe and enjoy yourselves.